Hey y'all, this is Mib here. Just gonna show you a little quick tutorial on how to import karts using the Pitstop 64 program that I've made. I previously recorded this video, but due to some technical difficulties, I had to throw it all away and try a new one. So I'm going to try and do this as quick as possible, since I don't want to spend another 40 minutes just going on and on about everything. So I'm going to show you some information about the karts, how it's like represented in the game, and then I'm going to show you the steps you go through in order to load in a new kart. And then I'll show you how to import that kart information through Pitstop 64 and make a ROM that will have your new kart in it. Also keep in mind, this is very much a program that is still in development, so there's going to be some bugs here and there, and not all the features are going to be in, like kart stats isn't in, mini portraits for the karts aren't in, etc. Those sorts of things. But let's just jump right in. So I'm going to open up the Chomp Shop file, or not file, the program, and then there's two parts to Pitstop 64 right now. There's the Pitstop 64 program, which is the main editor, and then there's this Chomp Shop program, and what it does is just it's there specifically for editing, viewing, making kart files. And so you can export these karts from the main Pitstop 64 program, and you can load them in right here. So I'm just going to load in. You can already see I've already made some stuff previously, but there's this full-pack.karts file. I'll make a link to it in the stuff below, and you can get it there, or you can actually export it directly from the Pitstop 64 program. But as you can see, I've got all these loaded karts in here. I'm going to go through all these tabs. This loaded karts window is kind of your main hub for editing karts, and I'm going to show you what each of these are. So, kart info. Right now it's just the kart name and then nameplate. And the nameplate is the name that shows up on the character select screen. It shows up below the portrait of the character. So if you're making like a new character, you need to make a new nameplate for their name, and then you can just import it there. Portraits. So this is a series of 17 images that represent the character's portrait, and they're used during the character select. I think they're used during, are they used during the end of the course, where if you win, it like shows your character in a victory pose? I can't remember, but if it is, then yeah. But there's 17 images. The first one is just a static image. Then there's 5 images of a blink animation, and that's used in the character select. Then there's a victory animation, which I believe is 10 images. And that's used when you select a character. And then there's a loss image, which is your character, after they lose a match. So that's fancy and fair enough. It'll tell you if you've hit 17 images or not. You can reorder them here, add in and take out images, etc. The next window here is the images, and this is just going to show you all the images that you have for karts, for that specific kart. This is kind of like the image bank that you will have to populate your animations with. And you can, I guess you can remove karts from here, I guess, if you want. But if you expand this right side, this is where you'd import new images. So if you wanted to create a new set of images, you'd add them in here and convert them to the kart image. Or if you want to be more specific, clear the base palette and reload them all in. And I'll go over that more in more detail in a bit here. One thing I do want to point out, if you ever see this kind of setup here that shows the kart image, this is specifically like a control I've made to kind of help things out. So this button up here will let you change the background color, and then this button down here will let you export the image. So you can save this this image, and it doesn't save the background. The background saves as transparent, but you can save like kart images and portraits and stuff. You can just export it straight out of the program, and now you can just export it right here. And then the last thing is animations, and this part's kind of important to go over, so we're going to talk about it a bit. There are 19 different total animation types, and they're broken up into 3 groups. The first group, I call it a turn, and I'll show you this one right here. As you can see, the kart, it's a slight turn for the kart, and the character's head bobs as he's turning. This is what you'll see of your character from behind when you're driving. And it contains 21 images, going from 0 degrees, looking straight forward, to 20 degrees, not 20 degrees, sorry, 60 degrees. And so each of these images actually increases the angle of the kart by about 3 degrees until it hits about 60 degrees. Then the second animation type is a spin. And so you can see that's a more varied spin. So it actually goes from 9 degrees to 180 degrees, looking straight back at the player. And that happens over 20 images. So each of these images actually increases by 9 degrees per image, the spin of the vehicle. And as you can see, the character doesn't bob or anything like that. So this is used for like far away karts, or if you're going to turn the kart all the way around, it'll use the spin animation after it's gone past the 60 degrees of the turn. The last animation group is crash. Pretty obviously, it's just the crash of the kart. There's 32 images in this group. An important thing to note is that the kart does, if they were to use this flat image of the kart every time, then if it went up a hill or down a hill, it would look very unnatural because the kart wouldn't conform to the shape of the hill. So they have these other these angle values, and they range from -25 to 25 degrees. And you can see the car's going up 25 there, and now it's going down 25 degrees. And that helps it match with the curve of the course, and it really does help out a lot. The last thing I want to talk about for this section before we get on to actually importing a kart, the kart images on the ROM actually take up a very large amount of space on the ROM. It's actually probably maybe the biggest just group of data in the whole ROM. And because of that, they needed to save, they want to save as much space as possible so they don't have to buy a larger, cartridge drive for it. So, whatever you want to call it. So what they did was they actually cut corners. And so for the turn here, which is the most detailed of the animations, they went ahead and did all the turn animations. And you can actually see on the right side here, these check boxes, you can see them kind of being lit up for each of the turns. For the spins, it's a little bit different. Instead of representing all 9 animations differently, they only have 5 separate animations, and they just take up multiple groups. So if the kart's at a 25 or 19 degree angle, it'll just show the 25 degree angle one. If it's at 12, it'll show the 12. If it's at 6, 0, or -6, then it's going to actually just use the flat one. And so this compresses down the number of images that they need to have by almost about half for that section. So that's an important note. If you want to represent all 9 animations with their own images with your custom kart, that's totally fine. The program will handle that just right for you. But the way Nintendo does it, I just tend to follow the same way. Saves me a little bit of time. Well, I lied. Actually, there's 2 more things I'm going to say here. The second thing here is that although I'm telling you right now, the turn animations have 21 images in them, the spin have 20 animations in them, and the crash has 32. You don't actually need all those images in order for this Pitstop 64 program to properly parse it. In fact, if you were, let me see if I can shift, no. If we were to just have a single image, whoops, I accidentally killed them all. If we were to have a single image as our animation, then the program I've made will actually just take that and write it to all the frames of the animation. And that works for any number of images as well, in fact. So if you want to not do the full animation, you're free to do that. In fact, the simplest kart you can make would be a single image and a single animation, and this animation would have every one of these checkboxes ticked, which means that it will be used for every animation of the kart, just a single image. And if you've seen like images online of like karts that are just like a single image that kind of like a moving head that moves around or something like that, that is what they've done. They just have a single image as every single animation, just a single frame. And Pitstop 64 will properly understand that and write every frame from that. So you don't really need to worry about the number of images in here as long as it kind of makes sense. The last thing I was going to say, right here, if you wanted to export all the images of a certain kart, like for example, I know there was somebody a while back asking about Yoshi. They wanted to have every image of Yoshi so that they could recolor it. This is a really roundabout way. I'm going to fix this later on, but if you want to export all the images, you can go over to one of these animation areas and click the Add Image button. It'll bring up this kart image select form, and you can just hit this Export All. I don't know if you have to select all of the images or not. I've kind of forgotten. You can shift click them and select multiple. But if you use the export all button, it should export all the images to a folder you select, and then you'll have all the kart images for that kart. Okay, cool. So that's all of the different tabs here, revert changes here. So let's get around to making a new kart. And so I've prepared a bunch of images here in order to import a kart. And it's just going to be Mario's kart, just grayscale. So it's going to be black and white. So I'm going to make a new kart, and I'm just going to call it Mario Black White. That's funny. You'd think hitting enter would just automatically hit that OK button, but got so many little things to iron out. So let's try and export this kart. I want to see this guy loaded. Oh wait, you can't, because there's all this information that's missing. So if you go to the export karts, you can actually like export a group of them into the same file and whatnot. But it'll also tell you if you can't export it and why not. So here we're missing the nameplate image. We're missing all 17 kart portraits. You need to have all 17 there. And then you need to at least have a single image and every animation checkbox accounted for. So then it can fill in all the information. So those are what we need. So let's just go through the list of making this new kart. For the nameplate, in fact, if you wanted to bring up, say, Mario's nameplate, and by the way this program's set up, you can actually have multiple things loaded at the same time and interact with them at the same time. If you wanted to make a new nameplate, you could export the nameplate, bring it up in Photoshop or Paint.net or wherever your favorite image editor is, edit it to use your new name, and then just import it back here. But I just have this testing nameplate. Oh, that's right, it's a BMP file. I have this testing nameplate right here. And it's a little good Comic Sans red name. So that's good. So I've imported it. Now, let us do the portraits. For the portraits, actually, it's pretty nice. You can shift click to gather up a bunch of them. And I should tell you, I'm pretty sure you have to have the same image size for all these, which I believe is 64 by 64. That is a big thing. I should have noted this earlier. But all these images have to be the same size of the images you're replacing. So kart images are all 64 by 64. I don't know what this nameplate is, but you can export and find out. I'm pretty sure this is also 64 by 64. So we're missing one, so we'll just import another one there and we'll be fine. Okay, so we've loaded in all the portraits for this new kart. This is a interesting thing, and I'll tell you a little bit about how this information is all set up. So I'm going to add in a whole bunch of cars right here, or a whole bunch of kart images. So these are all the kart images. I believe there's 321 of them or so. And these are all the black and white kart images I've prepared for Mario. Now, the way that kart images are working in the game is that they all share a common palette of about 192 different colors. And so that, and then there's also extra animation palette information. So like the wheels look like they're turning. That's another 64 colors, but usually, yeah, that's reserved for the wheels. So all these images, all 300 so images, have to share the same 192 colors for each pixel. You can't go outside that number. So when you make a new kart, what you want to do is you want to load in every single image that you're going to need, and you're going to want to create the palette just at that moment. So when you load in all your images, you hit the create the palette. It'll tell you that's going to create it. It's going to generate from all these images. You just hit OK. Usually this will take a while. I've had it last up for about 2 minutes because it's kind of intensive. It has to store every color and then make a map and then do some calculations to find the best pixel colors to use. But since it's black and white, this works for us in about 15 seconds. Miraculous almost. So yeah, now all the kart images have been brought over, and we can use them in our animations. If you wanted to add in a new kart image, you can load it in here, and then if the base palette's already been set, you can use convert to kart image, and that means that it'll take that base palette that already exists and try to apply it to this new image. Which means if you use somebody like Mario and you load in a Yoshi that's like a whole bunch of green colors, it's not going to transfer over very well because there are no green colors in Mario's palette. So it's actually probably going to come over all messed up looking. in that case, if you're going to do something like that, or you're going to bring over a lot of images, I would heavily recommend using this clear base palette button, and that'll just remove that palette, take all these images and put them back over here, and then you can create a new base palette with the new images and then the old images kind of mixed up together. And there is a bug with this right now. In order to do that, you have to add in an image before these enable. So, but that's no big deal. So now we have our images. This is the last thing we're going to do. We're going to set up the animations. And I really wish I had set up something for this because it's a real pain in the ass. What you have to do here is you actually have to create an animation for each of these. Well, not each of these, but corresponding to like the old ones. So what I like to do is I like to give them names that are easy to remember. So S minus 25 for spin animation. Whoop, I already went with spin, huh? That'd be made at minus 25. And then also 19 just because of how it works. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Let's start off with the top. We want T minus 25 for turn minus 25. Click those off. Then we want T minus 19 for turn down 19, and you get the idea. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the video, and I'm just going to fill out the rest of these because you get the idea. Alright, and so now you can actually see we have finished all the animations. There's one for each turn animation, and then there's 5 for the spin animations, which shares on the ends and then the middle ones. And we have one for the crash animation, and they're all named appropriately, so it's pretty easy to figure out which one's which. That's a big important thing that you want to do. If you want to cut corners and just have a single turn and a single spin, go ahead. But just the way that it looks in game, it looks pretty rough when you have a kart that's going down like a 20-degree slope, and it's just, you know, heading straight across it, like it's not even hitting it. Whatever. So what we need to do now is we need to fill out our animations with images. And so what I'm going to bring up this image select form again. It needs a better formatted name, by the way. But the nice thing about the way that I have these images named, and then I made these from the exported images from like the Mario Kart, so it just keeps all the names. The nice thing about this is I have a filter box at the top, so if I know I'm in the turn negative 25 animation, I can just say turn down 25. It's going to filter out any image that doesn't have that text in it, so I immediately have all the downturn ones. So I can shift click, get all 21, import them in, boom, already done. And I can do the next thing for the same for the next one, turn down 19, just grab them all, boom. And you just need to fill out all the animations. And I'm going to reset the video again here so I can do this without you having to watch. Alright, and now I'm back, and you can see that we have all the images filled out for all these animations. So that should handle that. So let me save these kart changes. I think it'll export fine if you don't click start or save. Or maybe not. It's hard for me to remember. It's been a while since I've messed around with this code. So let's go back to the export. Now let's just select him and we can export this kart. As you can see, I've already made this before. I've already done this whole tutorial before, so oh man, what a headache. But yeah, you just export it, it'll create a .karts file, right? Oh, that's right. If you try to save into a karts file, you can hit you can overwrite it, or you can append it, so you have like multiple karts in the file. Let's just overwrite it. Okay, so that's about that. So that's the Chomp Shop. That's about what it does. Oh, there's one last thing I want to show you about it. There's this reference cart settings here. So what you can do is you can use an existing car that you've loaded up as a reference cart. And so let's use Luigi. Actually, let's use Yoshi. And what you can do, if you save it to disk, it'll save it, you know, to the disk, and it'll load it the next time that you load the program, so you don't have to go back into the settings and set it every time. And what it does is it gives you a reference cart that will help you see where you're at in an animation. So let's just clear all these out. Let's put this one down here. So yeah. So let's say that we have this image and it's kind of out of order, right? So we can use the reference cart. Like, oh, well, that's a little bit further ahead in the animation than it should be because the Yoshi is kind of already farther turned away. So let's move him up until, there we go. That about matches up, right? and that's about the right location. So it just gives you like a reference kart at that frame in the animation, so you can, if you don't have the same number of images, or if you're just, I don't know, messing around with it or something like that, it can show you what the kart should look like at that point in that animation. So pretty nifty. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's get to the main meat of the program, the Pitstop 64. So here it's a little confusing. I'll explain what this project thing is. So when you hit new project, you actually are going to load in the ROM file, and then it'll convert it into its own ROM project thing. And so if you use save project or load project, it'll be using that ROM project object. And right now I would actually suggest against using that. It's still a little bit iffy. It's not very solid code right now. I need to do a lot of testing on it before I'm secure with it, and it's just, at the moment, it's better just to load up a raw ROM file, edit it, and then export it to your new one rather than having a ROM project. Kind of silly, but that's the way it is. So let's hit new project. There's my ROM. Important thing to note, always use a .z64 file. I forget the endian. I think it's big endian for that. I think it is, but it needs to be a certain endian, and Z64 is the correct type. So if it's not Z64 that you have, make sure to convert it before you load it in, because otherwise it is going to explode. So this will actually take a while because actually finished pretty quick, but it takes a while to load the ROM because it's loading in every single kart image, which is 300 some times 8. So over 2,000 images. It's rendering them all, it's putting it into RAM. So here you can see all the karts, and if you want to, you can actually export the karts, and that's how I made that original karts file that I loaded that has all the things here. I exported it from here, but you can also import. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna load up this Mario VW karts file, and so now you can see it's got our silly little portrait example here. Here's our Mario, completely black and white. So now that we've loaded it, we want to put him into the game. So what we'll use for that is over here, this section, the selected karts section. This is actually all the karts that are in the character select area in order. So if you wanted to put in black and white Mario over Mario, you just select Mario BW here and you insert it over Mario BW. And make sure you hit apply as well. And just a warning on this, there is a visual glitch. I don't know why, but when the kart gets saved to the ROM, sometimes there will be like visual tearing at the bottom of the kart. I imagine this is because of poorly spaced palettes. I don't really know what is going on with that, or maybe the image MIO0 compression blocks are overlapping, which would also cause that issue. I have to sort it out. That's still a bug in this. Unfortunate, but sometimes it comes out nice. So now after you hit the apply button, you can go up here and export the ROM, and yeah, we could rename it like VW Mario Kart 64, not Z64. And again, this little pop keeps coming off the window, but okay. So that's making the ROM. Then you've successfully loaded in a kart, and you've done this. You switched it into the roster, and you've exported. So I'm going to show you an example. I have a ROM running. I have the ROM from last time running already, so I'm just going to load it in here. And let me turn on the volume real quick. So here we're just going to sit through the title screen so it can actually show us the demo of the running karts, and it should show us this black and white Mario that we've just inserted into the ROM. Get that out of the way. So there you go. He's actually in the game, and he's running around. And I'm impressed because there wasn't any visual tearing on this one. Sometimes on some of the karts you get that, but oh well. So let's actually get into the game here. I just want to show off a couple things, I guess. So in here, in the character select, you can see now that we actually have the portrait images that we loaded in. And you can see like the frames being flipped through for the blink animations. And when you select them, it goes to that victory pose. You can see the animations working for that, which is cool. And so I'm going to show you one of the things that's not fixed yet, but hopefully in the next version or two it will be. If you look on the left there, you can actually see the mini portraits that each of the characters have, unless you see the order. As you can see, Mario's is fully colored still. If you made a new character, it would still look like Mario. So that's unfortunate, but thankfully it's actually pretty... I know exactly where it's stored at, and I've got some code that... lets me actually edit it. So that's all I really wanted to show you there. I'll show you a little bit of the rest of Pitstop 64, and then we'll call it good for this video. So there is ROM info. Oh my gosh, I should have said this earlier. I completely forgot. This is a very important thing, by the way. The ROM size typically for Mario Kart is 12 megabytes. However, if you're going to import more than one kart, or even if you're going to import one kart at all, I'd heavily suggest in resizing the ROM to a bigger size, because if the images overlap the end of the ROM, it's not going to resize it. You're going to cut off those images. It's going to get references beyond the size of the ROM when it loads the game, and then it's going to crash, and I'm going to get complaints. So what you'll want to do here is set it to a multiple of 4. So 16 is good. I recently made a remake of all the characters, and I had to go up to 20. In fact, just debug resize it, and you're good. That's under the ROM info. Surprisingly, no ROM info under there, just debug tools for right now. There's this text feature, lets you edit text that's found in the game. A lot of them are just kind of messages or titles for like raceways. An important one for this would be these kart names. So you can see there's Mario. So if like you win the match and it shows you the ranking of everyone, like their times and stuff, it'll use these names. And so you'll want to replace it with your new character name, like VW Mario. There's 2 sets of them. I think this one's like Japanese names, and then the second set is English. So it's probably just safe to edit both. But you can see there's a lot of different texts. There's a textures area, which lets you change these, just a certain set of textures, mostly menu things. And then also it lets you edit the splash screens. So if you wanted to make your own custom splash screen, you could just import your own. Just make sure it's the same size file as you are replacing. You want to follow that rule for basically everything right now. It's kind of a problem. The last thing I'm going to show off is the course viewer. So you just select your course, hit load course, and then because oh, actually it did load in. I thought you had to mess around with the settings first. So you can, like, for Yoshi's, for this level, it spawns you another level, unfortunately. But you can use WASD to move the camera around, and the mouse to kind of move the viewer. You can kind of look around the level. As you can see, there are some rendering issues. Definitely not supposed to look like that. Definitely not supposed to look like that. But this version of Pitstop 64 is meant specifically for editing karts. And this just using this course viewer might actually screw up your your ROM. So I would highly suggest not using it on a ROM that you're going to export. Just if you open up the ROM and look at the levels, yeah. Eventually there will be a kart editor. It'll actually be its own program too. I think I'm going to call it the Track Shack. And so you'll basically load in these .track files, and you'll be able to import 3D models, or export it into a format that you can edit somewhere else, and just mess around with it. And so that's going to be in the near future here. I hope. I don't know how much work is going to go into it, but it's got to be a lot. But that's kind of the joy of doing this, the uncertainty. Well, I think that's about everything. This about pages where you load it up at. So that's both Pitstop 64 and Chomp Shop, kind of where they're at right now for version 0.0.4.2. 0.0.5 will introduce texture editing and then the Track Shack, and the further I go in that, the more capabilities the Track Shack is going to have. And eventually, just like the karts, you can distribute .track files and .cart files, and then that way share your karts with other people, your karts in your levels. But yep, that is it for now. I think that covers the whole thing. If you have any questions, I lurk around Origami 64. So just go and post there, I guess, and I'll try and come out and help you if I can. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I'm sorry you had to watch, what is it now, 33 minutes of this? Oh, jeez. Oh, well. So I will see you guys later.